Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new edition of your weekly program on the Chessboard. Obviously, this week we're going to discuss the event of the week, which is the peace conference that is convening in Washington, D.C., particularly in Aneapolis, a small place close to the capital of United States of America, Washington, D.C. From Camp David to Whitewater and to the Washington, D.C., then we are back to Aneapolis in a different peace conference that is taking place in order to revive the peace process in the Middle East and to reach a settled and a permanent peace in this very volatile region that has experienced in the last past 5 decades. I'm very honored to introduce my guest in this show, Dr. AbdelAziz AlUwaisheg, an expert in the international affairs here in Riyadh. Dr. AbdelAziz, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Greg Meyer, a journalist specialized in the Middle East, also our guest from Washington. Mr. Meyer, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Also, we are joined by Mr. Saad Nimr from Ram Allah, the Palestinian territories. Mr. Saad, welcome to the program.
You are welcome. Thank you.
We'll start with our guest here in the studio, Dr. AbdelAziz AlUwaisheg. Dr. AbdelAziz, let's talk about this very important conference. Obviously, many people are hopeful. At the same time, some people are not optimistic about it. They think it's just a repeat of the past. What do you think?
I think you're right. It's easy to be pessimistic, considering the previous attempts that obviously did not bear fruit. However, I think it's easy to be pessimistic. It's probably more difficult to try to find hope that something will come out of this conference. I think we should be realistic that it is not going to produce a solution. I think at best, as the US government has said several times, it's really an attempt to relaunch the negotiations, meaning it's going to be the start and not, as some people think, that it's going to produce results. It's going just to produce another process through which the peace process will be jump-started. Keep in mind that I think the situation in the occupied territories is bad and getting worse every day, whether in Gaza or in the West Bank. There are incursions every day in the West Bank by the Israeli forces. West Bank and Gaza are basically not in speaking terms. There is always the danger of civil war. So the conference, in a way, if it manages to stop these dangers, I think it's going to be a success without even producing final results. So I think it's important to be realistic, that the situation is bad, and any attempt to at least stop the deterioration is to be lauded.
Now, Dr. AbdelAziz jump-started the process, tried to revive in the process. I mean, people are tired of these terms. I mean, didn't you think that obviously it is very significant to reach an agreement, but people are giving up. Didn't you think these attempts are just for just media consumptions?
No, I don't. It's probably. I think different participants probably have their own reasons for being there. President Abbas, for example, obviously wants to strengthen his hand in dealing with his both local adversaries as well as with the Israelis. Ehud Olmert as well. He's keen to strengthen his position vis-a-vis his rivals. So there are, and President Bush obviously wants to have something to show for his second term, given that his other projects have not been successful. So obviously there are these immediate objectives of the participants. But I think there is another overarching goal that I think that's in a way explains why 16 Arab countries and 34 other countries are participating, is that there is, I think, a belief, which I think is a correct one, that if there is no movement towards peace, usually there is a relapse into chaos and into war. And so we cannot afford, in a way, to let any opportunity, no matter how small, how minuscule, pass without trying to take advantage of it.
Okay. Now, Mr. Saad Nimr, a political analyst joining us from Ramallah. Mr. Saad, how do the Palestinians view this peace conference, and how did they follow the development as the conference started today, and also the meetings that took place between Mr. Abbas and Olmert and Mr. President Bush?
Yes, let me first comment on what Dr. AbdelAziz said about being optimist or pessimist. As a matter of fact, asking about the Palestinian mood, it is optimismist, which is, something in between. Most of the Palestinians are giving a chance, for any chance could bring peace to the area and end the situation that the Palestinians are in. However, so far, we deal with this conference or with this meeting in Aneapolis as much as it is shortening the life of the occupation, and this is what matters to the Palestinians. So far, the Palestinians are mainly, let me say, very skeptical about going on as people with this conference, because we have a very difficult experience in the last 14 years. Now, what happened in Aneapolis today regarding the speech of Mahmoud Abbas, he repeated the Palestinian ceiling, they repeated the Palestinian essential issues, which is very important to the Palestinian people. Olmert and Bush, they concentrate more on the idea of Jewishness of the state state of Israel and being a Jewish state, and this is something we believe might sabotage the meetings later on and the process of the negotiations in the later days.
Okay. Now, but obviously, what is the reaction of the Palestinian media in your part of the Palestinian territories? Did they react positively, or do they think it's business as usual and just a conference that the people will just get together in a certain period of time, that they'll be leaving with some promises, then maybe with time they'll just fade away?
Well, as far as the media is concerned, media since last week they were concerned with Aneapolis meeting, and definitely today it was all over the news, and the media were occupied with this matter. Now, to come to the street, because the media also focuses on what the people are doing. Today there was a few attempts to demonstrate against the Aneapolis meeting by some of the parties in the West Bank and in Gaza Strip. In the West Bank, the police tried to prevent these demonstrations, and there was a few clashes here and there. In Gaza Strip, there was a huge demonstration against Aneapolis, but let me say that Palestinians are not all alike regarding what's going on in Aneapolis, and definitely the media is reflecting that as well. Most of all of the PLO factions are with the meeting. However, you'll find on the opposition Hamas, Al Jihad Al Islami, Hizb Al Tahrir, and other smaller parties who are against. But most of the main parties in PLO are with, and that was reflected quite clearly in the streets today in West Bank and in Gaza Strip. And the media were preoccupied with this occasion, and all the time analysis and talking about coverage and all the matters related to Aneapolis, trying to reflect how the Palestinians feel about this meeting. Some are optimists, some are pessimists, some are with, some are against. So it's quite big confusion for the time being. We hope that by the end of the day we would come to a solution to this issue, and this would make a kind of a success. No one would like to see a failure of Aneapolis, because failure in Aneapolis means that devastating results.
Okay, now, Mr. Saad, you just people obviously need to see some seriousness about this matter. There have been previous conferences that have dealt with the issue, which is the Middle East issue. But didn't you think these demonstrations are a reflection of frustration in the occupied territories?
Absolutely, absolutely, you are absolutely right. The Palestinian, not just frustration and desperation as well. In the last 14 years, we've been through many episodes of negotiations with the Israelis, and for the time being, in the last few years, you can say that the situation is deteriorating in the West Bank and in Gaza Strip. The occupation is escalating their measures against the Palestinian, as you mentioned a minute ago, the incursions, the arresting, the building of the wall, the enlarging of the settlements, creating new settlements, controlling the borders, controlling the water. All these things are escalated, and definitely the Palestinians are absolutely frustrated with the situation. However, as I mentioned before, we give that chance of peace a chance as well, and we are anticipating what's going on. However, we have a saying here in Palestine says that if it's going to rain, we should see the clouds first. And if it's going to have a peace process, we should have seen some measures by the Israeli to ease the situation in the West Bank. When the negotiation started between Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, the president, and Olmert, the prime minister, 3 months ago, the number of roadblocks, instead of decreased, they were increased. So we are talking about 561 roadblocks only in the West Bank. So the settlements are going on with the enlarging and, as they call it, the natural increase, and the new settlements were created. The wall is continuing. All this stuff, and also the issue, which is very sensitive to the Palestinians, the issue of prisoners. They promised to release some 400 something, and they postpone it, and they are playing with the emotions of the families and the emotions of the prisoners. So all in all, the Palestinian viewing the Israeli position as not a positive one, and that's why they are very skeptical about what's going on.
Okay, Dr. AbdelAziz, the level of representation, but let's watch this report. I will be back.
Sure.
Dear viewers, we're going to watch this report from Gaza. We'll be back with more of Aneapolis conference and our guests from Riyadh and Ramallah and Washington, D.C., so stay with us.
The much talked about U.S.-led meeting that is to be held in the U.S. city of Aneapolis, with the participation of tens of Arab and regional countries, has created so much commotion in the region and has divided people between supporters and opponents. The Palestinian factions have held a number of meetings to discuss what they've called the possible dangers of Aneapolis and have expressed low expectations in light of the failure to reach any preliminary documents or even time schedules between the Palestinian and Israeli negotiators.